absolute most telling thing in Meghan Markle's fumble of a chat to, I guess, help bring publicity to her acquaintance's book launch was this quote. She was talking about how she likes to make people feel at home when they come over for a visit. I will just read the quote so you don't have to endure her vocal fry. "It demystifies," she explained. "People walk in and go, 'Oh, she's in this with me.' And what are they drawn to? Your kitchen. They come right in and suddenly everyone's a little bit softened." She goes on to explain she makes sure that she has a hot toddy on the stove that they can help themselves to, is barefoot, and wearing an apron when she welcomes people over for a visit. So there's a few issues here. First, what did she think was so mystifying to come over to her house that needs to be demystified? People don't view you like that, Meghan. But anyway, she thinks that it's going to be mystifying to come over to her house, and also that people are going to be so anxious that they need reassurance that Meghan is in it with them. They're not walking into this intimidating home by themselves. No, the Meg is here to graciously take their hand and make them feel more comfortable. What would be so nerve-wracking or mystifying about being in Meghan's home? I wonder what she thinks exactly, or how she thinks people think of her. But that's a pretty weird way to view it. I just have to say, I have never thought, when people are coming over to my house, I have never thought that they would be mystified, intimidated, or feel like I wouldn't feel weird, you know? No, I'm like hoping that they don't think my house looks bad, you know? It's the other way around, kind of. But anyway, she has also, in this very little quote, outed herself as completely and entirely manipulative. She wears an apron and greets people with bare feet to put on a show. Not because that's how she actually is in the moment, but because she took the time to kick off the shoes, peel off the socks, and put on the apron before they arrived. On purpose. It's to control the situation. It's an attempt, anyway, to control how she's seen and the dynamic at play. It's all on purpose. It's not genuine. It's all for a reason, to try to come across a certain way, to uphold an image, to make the guest think or feel something on purpose. That is manipulation. And this is exactly why the Meg is unlikable, because everything is an act. Even having people over to her house, she acts. Now, obviously, we all try, at least, I would imagine, to make sure the house is tidy and that we look presentable. We're at least dressed and out of our pajamas or our comfies, that we are, ready to welcome the guest when they arrive. Sure. Yeah. Maybe even have some food or drinks available. Make sure you have some clean dishes and things like that. You're doing a little bit of prep, sure. Because you don't want somebody to come over and be like, ew, or not be ready for them. Because even if you're meeting them in your home, you're still meeting somebody. You still want to at least be in some clothes and have things tidy. At the same time, I don't think any of us go to such great lengths to invite a guest over as this. As I want to be sure that I am barefoot and that I have something simmering on the stove or freshly coming out of the oven and doing all these extra things. Maybe for a party, you might take quite a bit more care, of course, or an event. But just for having somebody over, like a friend, this is going into the territory of manipulation, because she is trying to manufacture a certain image to convey a certain vibe. It's performative. Doing things with a specific goal and an intention to be viewed a certain way. It's very egocentric, it's very narcissistic, very toxic, and not at all authentic by definition. So just for an example, as contrast here, an actual authentic way of having guests over at your house is that maybe if somebody comes by unexpectedly or with short notice, you're probably barefaced. You're probably not all done up in makeup. You might be in your comfies, or you might have just popped on some clothes. but you're not like done up and going to the great lengths that Meghan is. You might be in the middle of something, in the middle of cooking or cleaning or taking care of the kids. Even if you're expecting guests, you might still be juggling a lot of other things within the house as people arrive. That's authentic. Or perhaps maybe you are fixing lunch for a friend to come over, but you're still like you're in the kitchen actively doing stuff when they show up. And cooking barefoot is actually quite dangerous. So you probably wouldn't be barefoot. That's authentic. That's genuine, normal stuff. You're not purposefully barefoot in an apron with a hot toddy on the stove. That's called setting a scene. And a poor one at that. I also find it questionable that she went with hot toddy instead of just like, I have the kettle on so somebody can have some tea if they want. Because a hot toddy's alcoholic. And what is she always obsessed with having an alcoholic beverage all the time? In real life, especially if you're a mom or you have kids, life is coming at your face all the time. There's always something that's causing you to run around the house and somebody's made a mess or somebody needs help with homework or is in the middle of painting or doing clay or something and lunch is being fixed or cleaned up from or what have you. Like there is always stuff going on that's taking your attention. So it's just entirely unrelatable, pretentious, and unbelievable for Meghan to say that that's what she does to make sure people are comfortable in her house. It's a farce. It's silly. But on to the actual book outing itself, the event. If it was to promote Kourtney's book, and that was the purpose of this occasion, then Meghan failed tremendously because she hijacked the event and made it all about herself. I mean, we're not surprised. It is a pattern that is very on brand, but still rude at the end of the day. She almost always turns every appearance into pushing her brand, which is currently to try to appear warm and shove unwanted lifestyle nonsense into the world. By doing so, though, in this instance, for example, she keeps the narrative of the evening or the event on herself, focused on her image, sucking up all the attention, rather than being a supportive friend and directing any and all comments and questions back towards the book or Kourtney herself. Like, let's just say she was asked what she likes to do to make guests welcome in her home. Let's just say that question was actually posed to her. I doubt it was, but let's say it was, okay? Instead of the trash that she said, I set a scene that I think is going to be really impressive. Instead of that, she could have said that she was inspired by Kourtney and tell a brief anecdote that connects to Kourtney or her book that would prevent any articles from being written about the nonsense that Meghan said without the bulk of it focused on Kourtney's book. Meghan could have framed her answers to be interwoven with stuff about Kourtney or her book, but she didn't. From the press coverage, you'd never even remember or know what the book is even called because it was all so Meghan focused, because she's so self-absorbed that it appears impossible for her to ever be giving in a conversation or with anything. She cannot share the spotlight to save her life. And this is a pattern with all of Meghan's appearances. As I've said, we've seen this every single time pretty much. From talks like this to interviews and podcasts, it's always about her personal storytelling. And make no mistake, it's stories, as in tall tales, embellished beyond recognition, and sometimes even lies sprinkled in there. She never prioritizes topical responses that focus on any other subject matter. It's always just about Meghan. She was meant to moderate the conversation and, of course, draw some eyeballs, get a little publicity, even just out of curiosity. But she failed to really nail the purpose of the event. When it's a book launch, it should be almost exclusively about the author and the book. And the moderator, Meghan, in this case, can tie in some personal anecdotes, sure. When it comes to sort of leading us to a question that she's asking of the author, that can make sense. But that is not what Meghan did. Like, here's an example. Your book focuses on intention within the home, which is so impactful for families, but it can be challenging. I know when I'm caught up in the schedules, work, chores, and wanting to get a long list of activities with the kids done, things like crafts or writing grandparents, it can be really hard to shift our focus to the intention and ensuring that home life feels joyous rather than prioritizing task-oriented, quicker-paced sort of vibes. What can we do to help shift our mindset to really create time or find energy to focus more on how things feel within a home? Notice how a question that's worded that way touches on personal experience to make it clear that this is something you actually have lived and have a legitimate experience question about of like, how can we apply this to a real life scenario that like we feel like we need to charge through our to-do lists before we can relax, that sort of a vibe, or like focus on squeezing in as much as we can. That's clearly a personal connection, but it's framed in a way of like, this is my type of experience. A lot of people have this experience, but it's capped there. The question is still fully advice focused. It's still pushing it back to the author and the book. It's completely directed outwards. There would be no ability to take that question and make an article about Meghan from that question. So it can be done, but Meghan refused and chose not to. Meghan did this 0 times. I watched it and read through the transcript to double check. Not once did she take a question that was nothing to do with her and completely pushed it out. Every single time she talked, she spoke about herself, and it was very inward focused. Not one of Meghan's turns to speak did she make it all about the book and author wholly. It was always talking about herself and then awkwardly asking a question of the author that was barely tied into the nonsense that Meghan had just said. They were barely even related, so it very much felt like Meghan used it as another chance to talk about herself, and the book and Kourtney were complete and utter afterthoughts. And it's actually a shame, because Kourtney's book sounds nice, and it has some excellent ideas. It's actually something worth getting out there. Because a lot of the messaging of the book is to think about your home through your kids' eyes a little bit more. And because of Meghan's self-absorption, so many of Kourtney's main points she explores in this book were completely lost. None of it was in the articles written, all because Meghan can't control herself. The subtitle of the book is Inspiring Ideas for a Home Filled with Joy. It features a bunch of different homes in a wide range of settings, from large houses to smaller city dwellings across different continents, which I think is a cool idea, and focuses on designing a home that's both beautiful and functional, especially one that supports family life, children's independence, meaningful rituals, connection, and intentional living. She focuses on themes like encouraging children's independence via the home with accessible spaces, displaying children's artwork meaningfully and embracing everyday mess rather than striving for perfection, designing shared or multi-use spaces that foster connection, like sharing rooms, emphasis on warmth and joy and connection rather than just aesthetics of a space. I think those are all very valuable ideas, and I think it's a great idea that there's examples of actual real homes that are various sizes. I think that's very helpful to people, but none of this was from any of the articles. This, I did my own digging about the book, removed from Meghan's little appearance with Kourtney. And at this time, there's no indication that Meghan's involvement boosted sales because, as I said, you don't even know what the book is called based on the press articles. They're just focused on what Meghan said, her little stupid tidbits about Rose and Thorn. And I wouldn't be surprised if when we get hard numbers that the sales don't reflect a boost from Meghan either. And you know what? It also makes me think that Meghan is the type of person or friend where in any space that she's in, around people who have their own ideas, their own careers, their own innovations and creative outlets and things that they're doing that are new and different, like this lady writing this book, Kourtney's book. She's obviously dedicated a lot of time and research to make this book. Maybe she's an interior designer. See, these are the things that should have been talked about during this book talk so that we know the background of Kourtney. But no, we don't. All we know of the background is that Meghan spend time with her during college days. That's it. Because that's all Meghan said. Meghan didn't give us any other information about Kourtney's background. But anyway. But it makes me think that she's the type of like friend or person who in any space wishes that she's the one who wrote that book and thinks that she could write an even better book. Who, any project, if she's around somebody who did a skincare line, Meghan in her head is thinking, I would have made so much better of a skincare line. I could do this too. I could also create this exact thing. If she's around somebody who wrote a book, she's in her head thinking, no, I have better ideas to share than this book. I should have been the one to write this book. I would have been way better at writing this book. And that's part of why in the conversation, in the chat, the book launch chat, she didn't actually direct much information towards Kourtney or the book or questions about Kourtney or the book, because she's thinking, well, I need to share my version of this. I need to share my ideas and how I do things in my home because I would be so much better at this and my ideas are more valuable. That's how it feels. I don't know though. Maybe that's just judgy. I don't know. But it kind of feels that way when Meghan is in these types of dynamics and in these types of spaces, because she has that sense of entitlement paired up with spotlight stealing behaviors and attention seeking behaviors that make it seem like that's what's really running through her mind and part of why, contributing to the way she behaves. The self-absorption is so deeply unpleasant to witness and even be around in real life. It must just be super annoying and disappointing all around for people around her. But leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.